Good afternoon. Good afternoon, Rotarians and guests. Good afternoon, Rotarians and guests. My name is Richard Dent, and I am your MC for today. I'd like to acknowledge the fact that for tens of thousands of years, this has been Wurundjeri, Bunurong country, people of the Kulin Nation, and pay our respects to elders past, present and future, and extend that respect to all Indigenous Australians present today and alive today. Welcome to our hybrid meeting. Welcome to those who are online. Welcome to those who are in the room. Thanks today will be given by Barbara Yerenday, followed by the Loyal Toast, who will be provided to us by President Reg, although President Reg has some symptoms apparently and will be joining us remotely. Apparently there's been a pandemic. Have other people heard about this? And so we're still being very cautious about that. President Reg will be joining us remotely today. Please ensure that your glass is charged. And Barbara.
Thank you, Richard. I want to talk a little bit about the arts today and what does the arts contribute to society. Also called fine arts, modes of expression that use skill. Also called fine arts, we're talking about modes of expression that use skill or imagination in the creation of aesthetic objects, environments, or experiences that can be shared with others. Traditional categories within the arts include literature, which includes poetry, drama, storytelling, the visual arts, graphic arts, and other forms of expressed on flat surfaces, so the plastic arts, sculpture, modelling, and decorative arts, and of course, the realm that I work in, which is architecture. The arts encompasses the creative works of society. So let me focus on the aspect of the creative arts, which I have personal experience. Placemaking. Placemaking is a multifaceted approach to planning, design, and management of public spaces. Placemaking capitalises on the local community's assets, inspiration, and potential, with the intention of creating public space that promotes people's health, happiness, and well-being. We can also make good places in our own realm. We create our homes, places to feel safe, and places to enjoy our family and friends. But some just don't have that privilege, and all they aspire to is shelter, somewhere to be safe for a night or two. This too is placemaking, the art of making a home from the little resources that we have. So in the spirit of good placemaking, food, fellowship, please give consideration to the requirements it takes a homeless person to make a place. And may the fourth be with you.
Members, Rotarians and guests, a toast to Australia and Rotary International. Australia and Rotary International. Thank you. Please be seated. And sorry for that confusion, Richard. As those of you attending at number 35 break for lunch, those of us online will be invited to join a breakout room where we can collectively enjoy fellowship, or alternatively take our own lunch break. We'll resume at around 1:10 p.m. Thanks, everyone. Members, visitors and guests, it's my great pleasure to welcome you to our 39th meeting of this Rotary year. I'm just not sure whether I'm being spotlighted here. Anyone able to give me an affirmation? Okay, good. Members, visitors and guests, my great pleasure to welcome you to our 39th meeting of this Rotary year and our 4,935th club meeting in our 101st year. Regrettably, I've been afflicted with a filthy cold, so I decided not to share it with you in person and join today's meeting online to avoid spreading my illness. It's wonderful to see everyone here today, including those attending online. What a great honour to have Clive Scott, AM, General Manager of the Sofitel Melbourne, as our guest speaker today. Clive will be speaking on interdependency, the interdependency between arts revival and hospitality in Melbourne, and will be further introduced later in the program by our chair of the day, Maestro David Cram. In the meantime, please join me in making them both welcome. We have some visiting Rotarians visiting us today. I invite you and your host to stand when your name is announced, and in one case to come forward to the podium when your name is announced to exchange banners. They're both international visitors. Firstly, Mohan Kumar from the Rotary Club of Ulsor, Bangalore. And secondly, Joseph Scuderi from the Rotary Club of Bangkok South to exchange with meeting chair Richard Dent the banners of our respective clubs. Richard, if you could handle that with Joseph, I'd be most grateful. Please join me in making our visiting Rotarians feel welcome today. I now call on past President Mary Barry to come to the podium to update us as Chair of the Host Organising Committee for the 2023 Rotary International Convention, which of course is being held in Melbourne in May 2023. Mary, over to you.
Good afternoon, everybody, and thank you, President Reg, for the opportunity to address our members today. Well, first of all, I'd like to start by saying the dates of the convention are the 27th to the 31st of May, 2023. Now, I strongly suggest you all put those in your diary ASAP and lock them in. Next slide, please, Joe. Now, areas I'm going to cover today are the convention stakeholders, the host organising committee structure and role, and most importantly, opportunities for you to get involved in the convention. Next slide, please. The stakeholders involved in this convention are, of course, the President-elect, Jennifer Jones. We have the Rotary International Convention Committee, the ICC, and members of that committee include myself as the chair of the host organising committee and a number of Rotarians from around the world appointed by PE President Jennifer Jones. And this includes the chair of the ICC, Francesco Arezzo from Italy. And from July 2022, this committee will commence monthly meetings. Other stakeholders, of course, include the Rotary International Board, the 22-23 trustee chair, past RI President Ian Risley, the host organising committee, the RI Secretariat and the convention staff team, whom I and members of the HOC meet with quite regularly via Zoom. So next slide, please. Now to the host organising committee. The host organising committee is made up of board members and advisors. The advisors include our very own Peter Jones for special events, Jason Balkin from the Melbourne Convention Bureau, Brian Nagus for transport, and Sue Vincent for diversity, equity and inclusion. We also have Jessie Harmon, the Rotary International Director for Zone 8 and a member of the Rotary International Board, and she is an ex officio member. The board itself consists of the chair, which is myself, 2 vice chairs and a number of portfolio directors. As the official host for the convention, the 5 Victorian districts are represented on the HOC board. District 9800 has 3 members, including myself, past District Governor Dennis Shore, one of 2 vice chairs and Director Promotions, and past District Governor Murray Verso as Director Sponsorship. The other portfolios include Sustainability, Publicity, Welcome, Host Hospitality, House of Friendship, and Customer Service IT. Apart from 3, those roles are all filled by past district governors from the other districts. So what is the role of the host organising committee? Well, as you can see from that slide, next slide, please, Joe. As you can see from the slide, we have quite a substantial list of things to do, but for today's presentation, I'm going to focus on 3 areas: volunteering, host hospitality, and sponsorship. Now, next slide, please, Joe. Now, I must say there is an extremely exciting time ahead. This is the official launch of the Melbourne Rotary International 2023 convention, which will occur in Houston at the Houston Convention between the 4th and the 8th of June. Now, this is an exciting time. It is when it'll be launched, and it's when, after that date, we can speak much more freely about the convention and actually start promoting it intensely. Next slide, please. Now, the next thing I'm going to tell you is extremely important information. This is when you register for the convention. And I strongly suggest that all of you go onto the Rotary International website between the 4th and the 8th of June. That is Houston time, to register, because that is the cheapest registration fee you will be offered. After those 5 days, the registration fee goes up by about $50 American. So for the first 5 days, it's a special rate. It's roughly about $425 American, and then it goes up after that, and it goes up again later in the year and early next year. So if you're planning to go, register in the first 5 days, and at the latest, register before the 31st of December. Otherwise, you just pay more for the same thing. Next slide, please. So how can you get involved in the convention? Well, obviously, the most important and best way is to volunteer, which is what Rotary does best. Recruitment for volunteers will commence in June 2022. Volunteers can be Rotarians, family members, friends, Rotaractors, alumni, anybody who qualifies and wants to be involved. If you wish to volunteer within the 2 convention venues, then you must be a registered delegate for the convention. Obviously, there will be opportunities outside of the venues for those who are not registered, and they can volunteer at the airport, train stations, hotels, etc. And further details on how to apply to become a volunteer and put your hand up will be made available by email and the bulletin, and also on our website. Next slide, please, Joe. Another opportunity is host hospitality. This is a Rotary International tradition where delegates are offered a memorable evening of hospitality, local culture, and international fellowship. Rotarians who live within 15 to 20 kilometers of the CBD are encouraged to participate in this wonderful opportunity by inviting 4 to 8 delegates to your home for dinner, offering a more intimate and relaxed experience of life and culture in Melbourne. Hosts will need to collect their guests from their hotels and ensure they get home safely. That can be by Uber or taxi, or if you're still up to it at the end of a good night, you can drive them yourself. You will be given, as a host, $55 per guest to put towards the cost of the meal or the transport. So it's $55 per guest you will be given to help you to facilitate this. So if you're interested, we'll have further details on the club website, and I'm sure Joe can send you the emails and whatever that we sent out some time ago. And a number of you have already registered, but there is still room for more. Next slide, please. Now, if you're a business or you have a family who runs a business or a friend, you or they can purchase a booth in the House of Friendship. That booth will cost somewhere between $2,000 and $2,500 American dollars. And further details on how you can get a booth will be available later in this calendar year. Next slide, please. Now, another opportunity is sponsorship. If you or someone you know is interested, Hawk Director of Sponsorship, Murray Verso, will be more than happy to speak to you with a lot of detail about sponsorship. The next slide, please, Joe. So to give you a high-level overview today, there are 4 levels of sponsorship available. There's diamond, platinum, gold, and silver. And they range from 34,000 Australian dollars to 274,000 Australian dollars. And of course, you get different level of benefits with each of those sponsorship opportunities. There's also what is called a supporter status for the House of Friendship, which is 14,000 American dollars. That provides greater visibility than just having a booth, but not full sponsorship rights, but certainly there is room for negotiation with Rotary International if you want to be a supporter. Next slide, please. And finally, there is the opportunity to nominate a project or a person to present in one of the breakout sessions during the convention. Call for proposals will be officially opened from July to September 2022. In total, there will be 80 to 100 breakout sessions, but I have to warn you, it will be very highly contested. I have heard they can get up to 300 proposals. So if this club has projects and people we would like to put forward for the breakout sessions, that is the time to do so. So I hope in this short presentation, you will see opportunities for you, your family and friends to be involved in what for some people will be a once in a lifetime opportunity to attend or volunteer at an international convention. And what makes this one so special? You will have an opportunity to meet up to 25,000 like-minded people from around the world. People who come together, unite, and take action to create lasting change in our world at an international, state, and local level. This is a huge opportunity. So please do tell your friends, tell your family, and get as many people as you can along to this amazing event. And I would now like to finish with a short video to remind you, after 3 years of those dreadful lockdowns, what our beautiful city, marvelous Melbourne, has to offer, both international and interstate visitors from around the world. With 2023 on the horizon, folks, it's time to get excited about Melbourne and our surrounds. Let's hear it from Melbourne.
1, 2, 3, 4, get my shoes and out the door. 5, I'm alive. 6, 7, 8, feeling great. 9, gonna shine, life is good. I'm doing fine. 10, gonna do it right and do it again, yeah. I look into the sky with all the beautiful color, but there's more than just for me, so gonna share it with another. I got to show, to give, let out. I want to sing and shout. Take a look and see a beautiful morning that turns into a beautiful evening, and together make a beautiful life. And if you wanna see, then come along with me, that's right. And if you want a good tomorrow, it's pretty simple, got a find a light to follow. And if you do, you have a future real bright. And it's a combination of consistency. Come on and sing, oh, 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 oh. Come on, come on, come on and sing, yeah. Come on, come on, come on and sing. Oh, 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 oh. Come on, come on, come on and sing, yeah. Come on, come on, come on and sing. Oh, come on, come on, come on and sing, yeah.
Thank you very much, Mary, for that presentation. I'd now like to invite Sue McCarthy to join us on the podium and make a very important presentation on behalf of the Rotary Foundation. Over to you, Sue.
Can you hear me? This is important. Good. This presentation has been interrupted by COVID, and so it's well overdue. But it's a presentation to Peter Maver. Peter Maver, can't even speak. Congratulations, Peter, on your thoughtful and impactful decision to support Rotary's promise with your legacy bequest. Your bequest will strengthen the many ways that Rotary connects in the world by building meaningful relationships and uniting passionate people through service. At this time of year, when we all plan for our annual giving, we particularly I, urge your fellow Rotarians to follow your example. On behalf of the Rotary Foundation trustees and all Rotarians, we thank you for your contribution, and we'd like more of you to do likewise. You get this very classy badge, and there's a bit more to come too, but I think Joe decided we'd be overwhelming you if we presented you with all the gifts at once. So Here you are. Thank you. Thank you. Say something if you wish.
As a long-standing Rotarian, I've had to listen to something like 34 or 35 or even more district governor speeches. I only remember one, and in fact only 1/4 of his speech, and that was Jim Studebaker, who ran the Australia Bank. Now, can you even? I can't even remember the Australia Bank. But the point he made is that a duty of Rotarians was to give money. And if you've been on committees trying to do projects, you know that that's absolutely essential. With no money, you can do nothing. So I urge all of you to get on board. If you become a Paul Harris Fellow, the website's very good now. You can pay your annual, what you're giving annually, and it, in Australian dollars, and it all translates for you. I actually did it 2 months ago because I thought the Australian dollar was as high as it was going to get against the American dollars. And just to give you a laugh, they rang me the other day and said, "What's this $40 donation?" And I thought, well, I never gave you $40. And then I realised it was the Rotary Club of Melbourne's annual football tipping fee. I'd paid it into the wrong account. So thank you. But please, I want many more to join me.
Okay. Thanks so much, Peter, and congratulations. That's a great contribution and a great example and leadership for all of us. I'd now like to just make a couple of quick announcements. These are things that are well covered in recent correspondence. I think every member's received a personal invitation from me for the Sip and Connect gathering next week on the 12th of May at Crudo, which is the function space behind the Crew restaurant in Glenferrie Road, Kew. It's a brand new refurbished warehouse and a great space for nearly 120 people. So plenty of safe space for us to gather in. Please consider carefully whether you're going to come along. That's going to be a great opportunity to help put some mojo back into the club after the shutdown over the last couple of years. So I'm hoping that you will join us there. And secondly, the other huge event which is just coming up is which will be on Thursday, the 2nd of June, is our food waste event. This is something we're hoping, with the help of the Sofitel and various other people like the City of Melbourne and so on, to turn into an iconic Melbourne event, which we'd like to be running every year. And it'll also be the venue for the second presentation of the club's Environment Sustainability Award. This one is a must-see. It's really going to be a fantastic event, and I'd encourage everyone to be there on the day. And finally, my duty is to draw the raffle, which is going to be incredibly difficult to do remotely. So if I could ask Richard Dent to come to the podium, perhaps to draw and announce the raffle, and then following that, David Cram, if you could come to the podium to introduce Clive, our guest speaker. Thank you.
President Reg, Rotarians and guests, I'm David Cram, Chair of the Arts Committee of Rotary Melbourne. It's my great pleasure and privilege to introduce our guest speaker for today, none other than Clive Scott AM. He was awarded the AM last June, and well deserved. Clive, who has a long career in hospitality and has been General Manager of the Hotel Sofitel for 16 years, and is also a dominant force in the arts. I'll just say a couple of words very briefly. I'm going to quote from a forerunner of Clive, Eric Stuber, General Manager of the Sofitel, who said, "Hotels are living operas. Every day, guests and staff interact thousands of times rather as a cast and audience do, and there is rarely a day without a dramatic event of some kind. I think it would take somebody then of the caliber of Clive to be able not only to run this very complex organization, but also to help society as a whole, for example, in Oceania, and also closer to home with the Committee of Melbourne and the Melbourne Awards, that's the highest accolades, and also in the arts. For example, helping to ignite courage and fresh thinking in art through the Georges Morat Foundation, and encouraging transcendent and transformative art through the Finucane Foundations, helping dance, music, craft, modern art, ballet, and the Melbourne Symphony Orchestra. And the list will go on. You can find it all on the internet. Please welcome Clive Scott.
Thank you, David, very much for those kind words. Does that mean that I'm the Pavarotti here or what? I must be, right? So firstly, I'd like to acknowledge also the first people on whose land we meet today, the Boon Wurrung and the Wurundjeri people of the Kulin Nation, and pay respects to them and also pay respects to their connection to culture, community and country. And initially what I'd like to do is thank you, the Melbourne Rotary Club and members, etc., because when we came out of the pandemic, you were the first organisation that actually came back and had an event. And I cannot explain to you what a positive message that sent to everybody in the hotel that things would get back to normal eventually, right? So thank you very much for that. Also, as Rotarians, you're in many varied aspects of the city. So I'm sure you will resonate with what I'm going to talk about today, which is really the interdependency of arts, revival, and really the revival of hospitality in Melbourne. Arts and culture went through a very sad pandemic phase. Lots of arts workers didn't get JobKeeper, and the majority of shows and events were cancelled in Melbourne. Hotels also suffered. They were closed or they existed on quarantine contracts that have now long disappeared. Prior to the pandemic, undoubtedly, Melbourne was the arts and culture capital of Australia. It had a vibrant theatre scene, an internationally recognised musical theatre scene, standing proudly beside New York and London in the quality of the shows it produced, along with a National Gallery that had visitation numbers that regularly put the top 10 galleries in the world into a very embarrassing situation, right? Then also, if we start talking about all the other arts activities of the Greater Melbourne arts community, we position the city in a very unique level of vibrancy. It was a vibrancy that made most world cities very, very envious of Melbourne. Now, Rupert Meyer recently in a speech to the National Museum said that Australians are keen cultural consumers. Arts and culture play a valued role in our communities, and 82% of us attend a cultural event every year. And this is a figure much greater than sports. The latest report by Live Performance Australia shows greater participation in the arts than AFL, NRL, soccer, Super Rugby, cricket, and NBL combined. So, as David said, I'm involved a lot in the arts, and as the hotel is also. So I know a little bit about what's going on and how they're still suffering. Hotels also suffered. During the pandemic, you know, technically a lot of hotels closed, right? We didn't close, we stayed open, and we didn't take quarantine business. The lowest point we got to in the hotel was myself, one guest, one receptionist, and one engineer, and that went for 3 weeks, right? Another major factor in the hotel business, which a lot of people don't realize, is in the period of the pandemic, we opened 4,000 new rooms in Melbourne. The pandemic and no pandemic, they were being built and they had to open. And the majority opened to no business and still are suffering. And the other thing, which is very not happy for general managers, is the fact there's another 4,000 coming in the next 2 years. Prior to COVID, the hotel industry was running at 85% occupancy across 1 to 5 star hotels. I can put it into perspective. Last month, Melbourne, 1 to 5 star, reached 51%. That's the highest we've reached so far. Sydney, 51%. Brisbane, 61%. So they're very low figures. And for the businessmen in the audience here, you don't make any money on 51%. On any weekend in Melbourne, a high percentage of leisure business came to hotels within 15 kilometres radius of the city. Plus, there was the intrastate business out of the regional areas, and a good 20 to 30% came from interstate, which was really the cream of the crop. And also, there was a large amount of international business. If you go back to 2018, there were 80 airlines flying weekly into Melbourne. At the moment, there's about 5. And you have to ask, why did they come? They came for the vibrancy of the city, and they came because of the components of the city. And one of those was arts and culture. And I just want to look at one example, and that's the Winter Masterpieces series. At the NGV or ACME or Melbourne Museum, every winter there's a series of sponsored art that comes to the city. And this actually came about with a conversation between Visit Victoria and the Hotel Association a long, long time ago in the early 80s. And it was really about bringing visitation to the city in those winter months. Now, since 2004, 7 million visitors have come to Melbourne to see those various exhibitions. Tutankhamun in 2011, there were 796,000 visitors. Van Gogh and the Seasons in 2017, 462,000. MoMA in 2018, 404,000. And if you also look at a summer show, which was in 2013, which was called Melbourne Now at the NGV, 750,000 visitors came to see it, and it was the 3rd largest exhibition in the world that year. And if I just consider something like the Van Gogh show, that was a $56 million economic impact into the state. 462,000 people in 76 days. But most impressive for the hotels was that 103,000 of those visitors were from interstate and 17,000 visitors were from overseas. So 1/4 of the visitation had to be accommodated somewhere in Melbourne. And overall, the Winter Masterpieces, since 2004, the economic impact has been $450 million in the state. So in the last couple of months, yes, they're ramping up the arts. We've had the Comedy Festival, we've had musicals like Moulin Rouge, we've had Loom, we've had the M Pavilion. They're all draw cards, right? And really, the way to look at it is a draw card. The modern day traveller needs excuses. They don't travel anywhere unless there's an excuse. And Melbourne did provide a full range of excuses, such as the Winter Masterpieces. But to get back to the levels we had in 2017, 2018, we have a long, long way to go. It may surprise you to know that 2018, there were over 700 festivals in Melbourne. Now, we know the big ones, like the Comedy Festival and Fashion Festival, but if you go all the way down to ones like the Spanish Festival or the Garden Show, there's over 700 in the city. At the moment, that 700 don't exist anymore. There's only about 200. So I think it's a myriad of actual events that made up what was driving everything in the city. Now, as David said, we sponsor theatre, dance, music performances, and they're not back to the 2017-28 levels. If I go to something like the Melbourne Symphony Orchestra at the moment, there's still a hesitation to go, and you see large sections of seating which is empty. I went to the ballet a couple of weeks ago. You see sections of rows empty throughout the theatre because the subscribers are too frightened to come back yet. The other thing also is that Melbourne has always been known as the live music capital of Australia, and actually of the live music capital of the world in many ways, right? And there was a live music every night of the week, you know, from jazz basements to rock and roll. And this isn't yet back to the 2016 levels, even though they're all open and can perform. So if I just consider the hotel occupancy of one related event, down here in the park, you can see it from here, is a structure called M Pavilion, and it's built by Naomi Milgram Foundation. So if you go about 2 years out from that, there are meetings with the architect, there are invitations for the architect to come here on site. They stay in the Sofitel. The architect comes for the launch, they stay in the Sofitel. Architect visits during the building, he stays in the Sofitel. And it's just people coming and coming. Now, just that one unit there can give me about 3% occupancy in 1 month. Now, that doesn't sound like much, but if I take 700 festivals and multiply it out, then I can actually fill several hotels across the city for 3 to 4 months just based on the arts-related events in the city. And that's not there. It doesn't exist anymore. I want to digress for just a little minute and look at something like this tower that's behind us, because the greatest worry for the city is not necessarily arts or hospitality, it's those empty offices. The office workers are not coming back to their offices. John Fain, in his April 10th article, said we must save becoming a donut city, everything in the burbs and nothing in the centre. Melbourne and Greater Melbourne were 25% of the GDP of the state. Office workers coming only 2, 3, 4 days a week is immensely damaging to arts and culture, small business, hotels, all businesses. Even the downstairs in the professional suites, several doctors have had to close because there's no traffic of office workers. But the damage to the arts industry is immense because the number of people who came to work and then went to an arts event or a music event after work was at least 20% of the market, and it doesn't exist. We all love Melbourne for its vibrancy, and we love living in this most livable city. And it is a vibrant, alive city, thriving 7 days a week, but we need to get it back to that. And at the moment, it's not heading in that direction. There is an independency between arts and hospitality, but I have to tell you, in reality, there's an independency between every facet of tourism in this city. We were one of the most successful tourist cities in the world, and you can look at it that it was based on arts and culture, food, wine, entertainment, festivals, sport. And I'll give you an example. I met a couple, this is in 2017. As the wife came back to the hotel with bags of shopping, the husband left in his Collingwood Guernsey to go to the sport. The kids came down with them. They went to the NGV. So people come to the city for the vibrancy of the whole city and the interdependency of everything in what was one of the most successful tourist cities in the world it's there. We have to look after it and we cannot damage it. And at the moment, we are damaging it because we're staying at home and working from home. We are not attending events yet. We do not have the level of interstate travel we need. We do not have any international travel. It's so minimal, it's not worth counting. And we just don't have that thriving machine that we had before, which we all loved because we loved living in the most livable city in the world. So Melbourne has traditionally been the powerhouse of Victoria's tourism industry, attracting the majority of interstate and international visitors. It's also the primary gateway to the regional Victoria. And at the moment, regional Victoria is existing on us only. It has lost the interstaters, a lot of them, and it doesn't have any of the internationals. And we're going to start to travel internationally ourselves, and that regional area will start to suffer also. So as that gateway, we have to have the gateway as a vibrant space as well. You know, the state has a lot of strengths, world-class livability. It's a very compact and connected state. It's progressive, it's creative. We have very good retail, very good fashion. We have extremely high quality of food and beverage, one of the biggest restaurant cities in the world. We are an events and live performance city, right? And we have arts and culture. And it's the combination of all those things that actually have driven the city to be the most livable city. And we need to get back to that level. So there is an interdependency on all those elements that actually drives the success of the city, and we need to take part in it. So we ourselves as citizens need to get back into the city. Yes, we have hesitancy and it's difficulty, and it's going to take time, but if we don't drive it soon, there's going to be damages. So I thank you for your time today. I look forward to seeing you at an arts and culture event somewhere in Melbourne soon. And just remember, we all need to participate in our city to make it the city as great as it was previously. Thank you.
Thank you, Clive. Not only has Clive pointed out Melbourne's proud history, he's also pointed out Melbourne's potential. The famous Spanish cellist Pablo Casals said, when everything seems hopeless, take the next step. And with somebody like Clive, I know that we can all take those steps in confidence, knowing there are people like you around, Clive. But I will also ask, now we have a nice time because you're brilliant with your timing. Thank you for questions. Please state your name clearly. Take the microphone from Richard Dent. And thank you, Clive.
Clive, Philip Endersby is my name. My question is, during COVID, from a business perspective, when you have a landlord and you've got a property, and the government came out with regulations where one could decrease their rent proportional to their fall off in sales. My question is, with these hotels, I gather they're owned by someone outside. How was the Sofitel placed when there's yourself and 3 others in the hotel?
Well, as you've said, Philip, most hotels in the city, and I think probably 95, 96%, are owned by somebody else and they're managed. So we're under a management contract. So the benefit of the reduction in rent went to the owners. Right? But the easy way to explain here is that, you know, I've been here 16 years, so you can very easily say I have some of the nicest owners in the world. Right? This whole complex is owned by AMP Capital, and AMP Capital built this building, and they have tremendous pride about it. So if I told you the amount of money they put in, out of their pocket back into the hotel, you'd be horrified. But so they're very protective of the hotel. But that rental saving doesn't come to the hotel at all. But it did go to the owners, which was putting money into the hotel. Does that answer your question?
Clive, Peter Dakin. I've been working in the Rialto for over 30 years,
Yes.
and it's been frightening, the occupancy rates over the last couple of years, particularly with the public sector. I'm interested to know what sort of pressure in terms of hospitality and arts you're putting on the state government. For example, Transport Victoria moved in there February a couple of years ago with 750 people. They'd be lucky to be 50 people there at any one time. Probably got 100 car parks at 600 a month. We're all paying for. There's a number of us in Rotary. We're working with international students with the City of Melbourne through our own. I remember the Lord Mayor. We decided to have a meeting with the City of Melbourne with the women we were dealing with international students. They said, Peter, can we come to the Rialto because we're not working at the City of Melbourne, and nothing's changed. And there's so many places that have gone broke. So what pressure are you as a sector putting on the government?
Well, I can tell you the Hotel Association and VTEC, the tourism organisation, yes, we've had some long meetings with the government, and a lot of it has been about government workers coming back, because there's just in this end of the city, there's about 30,000 government workers that haven't come back to their offices, right? And we actually said to the minister that, you know, you're basically just setting a bad example, right? I have to say that the indication that we're getting is that they have been very worried about winter, and they're very worried about what is going to happen during winter. It hasn't seemed to have happened overseas, but I still think they're going to wait to see what happens in winter before they start to send people back. But the other problem also is that I think that the Public Service Union told people don't go back, which is a big problem, right? International students have started to come back to the city. They're just not in the numbers they were previously. And I know that because I need them as workers. I need them as, you know, banquet staff, and we just can't get them. The point about it is that you're in a bit of a flow-on effect. You know, I was talking to some people that I received a WhatsApp this morning from the company, or the laundry company. There are 7 trucks, 6 drivers have got COVID, so they can't deliver the laundry. Right? I also know that laundry can't find workers. I also know that their chemical, they have a special chemical to do dry cleaning, didn't arrive from China. So everything's being affected by everything else. So, but I think the more people we can get back, right, the more the vibrancy, because, you know, I'm a big business, and yes, our owner's looking after us, but those small cafes and small bars and and, you know, little hairdressers and things, they're suffering badly there. And a lot of those building managers are still charging their rental. There was no rent relief there, very little.
Through you, Joe, is there anyone online who'd like to ask a question? Peter, Sue, Richard, not putting you under any pressure. Chris? Just go off mute if you'd like to. Doesn't look like it, that awkward thing. Our guest, Mr. Kumar.
My name is Mohan Kumar. I'm traveling from India. I'm from a city called Bangalore. I'm just giving an outside view. I think the whole thing is now with cricket is going to come World Cup in October. So we are seeing a lot of interest. People want to travel to Australia. And I'm also seeing not just few short term, there's Olympics coming in another 10 years time. So I think a lot of positive things we are seeing from outside in. So hopefully next 6 months, the traction will build.
Yeah, it's interesting. Talking about cricket, my director of commercial sales marketing, his name is Rajput Ashish. And I went to a dinner and I met the people from the T20 World Cup. And I said, oh, well, there's my business card and give me your business card and everything. And, you know, we can become accommodation supplier. I went back and I gave the card to my commercial director, Ashish, and he just pushed me out of the office, got on the telephone, rang the man and booked the rooms. But he's very upset because India is staying in another hotel, right? But yes, we'll have 3 teams minimum, some days 4 teams staying here. Yeah, I think there are a lot of positive signs, right? Take, for example, the Grand Prix. Grand Prix showed a lot of, 400,000 people over 4 days, very good for the interstate and international audiences to see that. But if I go and I ask my company, how long is it going to take for international travel to come back to 2017, 2018 levels? 2024, right? Before you get back to where you should be. So that's 2 years of climbing. It's a long way, right? It's a long way for a lot of businesses. Right? And I don't think a lot of smaller business can sustain themselves for that length of time. Because already you can say, if you walk through any of the city and also even the suburbs, the empty shops is dramatic, very dramatic.
Clive Robert Fisher. Thank you very much for your hospitality, your wonderful hospitality here week to week. Your staff are terrific. We really enjoy coming here. Let me say that first. Secondly, my reading is that longer term, most of the city employees are going to be looking for an arrangement with their employers of working in the office 3 days a week and 2 days from home. Do you think that the hospitality industry and government has taken account of that likely trend?
No. I would say I could be very quickly and say, no, I don't think they have. I don't think they have. I think the city council has, and I think the property council has, most definitely. Right? But what that means is if they come only 2 or 3 days a week, you have to generate another 20% companies coming into the city. And I don't see any work being done in that area. But I know that the city council has had discussions and talked about the fact that, and that's why they are actually, everybody here would remember Postcode 3000 they did in the 80s, am I right, in the 80s to drive the business. They are looking at another project like that. They're looking at the fact we need to generate now probably another 20 to 30,000 people living in the city, and we need to generate another probably 40 major companies being based in this city. Otherwise, we will not have the occupancy we had previously. Because first off, that's in a 6-year period, that's 8,000 new hotel rooms. I don't know who's going to stay in them, because if you don't have business people in the offices, nobody's going to come from Sydney and Brisbane to visit them. Right? And then you have empty rooms. Yep. And then China's tourism, you won't see it until 25, 26. Right? So a lot of the other Asian countries also the same. India is the only one that started to do tourism. Yeah.
Thank you. Well, we have an online question, and then I think we might have time for John's after that. But is it Reg? Are you the online questioner?
Yes, I do. Thank you, Richard. A quick one, Clive. I was impressed with the way you managed the Sofitel all the way through the pandemic lockdowns, and I'd just be interested in your personal reminiscences of the most challenging decisions you had to make. Perhaps one of the most challenging.
Well, I have a partner doing a PhD who's at home, and basically they said, you're not staying at home. So I came to work every day. Right? So I came to work every day, but I also came for my own sanity. And then it was interesting that I noticed then a lot of my department heads started to drift back. Then my supervisory staff started to drift back. And then even some staff said, oh, can we come back? And we would organize things for them to be able to come through the hotel. And I think it was a time, did I get depressed at any time? Yes. Sitting in the lobby one day, and there was only the one guest staying in the hotel, and nobody came into the hotel. Nobody walked through for about 5 days. Then it was a little depressing. But I think everybody was going through it. I think the decisions we had to make were, unfortunately, we did have to get rid of a certain amount of staff because the payroll at one stage was too high, and we were getting indication this is going to go for 6 to 8 months. What was interesting about that was, I can tell you that I think we got rid of close to 100. At least 30 of them thanked me because they were going to retire in the next year or year and a half anyway. So they were older workers, they were in housekeeping, they were tired, and I gave them a payout, and they were like, thanks, and they went. Right? And then I think the other bigger decisions were always the discussion about how much money do you need to survive? And I was having those conversations constantly with the owners about how much money needed to be put in the bank account, because there's still charges. The building has charges, there's insurance, it just keeps on rolling. There's one thing that was quite interesting was the number of bills that kept coming on my desk, and I'm thinking, we're not open, we don't have anybody here, and I just keep getting bills for things. Why am I getting bills like this? So I can imagine how a small business person, right, in a small cafe and things, must have freaked some days at the bills coming in. But I think we all made the same decisions, right? And I think it was an experience in life. I don't want to do it again.
Thank you, questioners. Thank you, questioners. Thank you, Richard, for holding the microphone, and thank you, Clive. This little gift from Rotary Melbourne brings together history, fashion, and comfort in the form of a little book which has many interesting stories and photos. Is the R100 history of the Rotary of Melbourne, which was brought in our centenary. We also have the R100 socks limited edition, 200% Australian, made in Preston by past President Phil Endersby, who asked that first question. So enjoy, and thank you to Wilderness Wear.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Now handing back to our President, Reg.
So I think that's actually going to be me today, David. So on behalf of President Reg, thank you to visitors, guests and members for attending today. Thanks also to Thanksgiver Barbara, to Chairman David, of course, to our lunch setup and reception teams for their fantastic effort, as always, to make this happen. Thank you, Clive, for offering us free venues for the rest of the year. Did I not hear that part? Sorry. As always, to the setup team, if you could stay back a few minutes to help with the pack up, that would be great. Our next week is our monthly evening meeting. As a first, this will be presented as a hybrid broadcasting from the Lyceum Club just across the road here. Our guest speaker is inaugural Rotary Environmental Awardee Claire Moore and founder of Sweet Justice Limited, a social enterprise which teaches beekeeping within the justice system, and I hope that you're able to join us. Ladies and gentlemen, everyone, please stand to close the meeting with the national anthem. Thank you.